New digital technologies are driving a step change in enterprise business transformation. At the Digital Twin Podcast, we explore the intersection of technology and business. What should your digital twin look like? Hello and welcome back to the Digital Twin Podcast. This is your host, Omar and Hari. Today we've got tangible benefits as our topic of discussion. In fact, we talked about digital twin scorecard in one of the early podcasts. I believe it was like second or third. Of course, you guys can go listen to that. And today we thought we'll take a little bit deeper dive into it.
Yeah, I think, before we really get into a tangible benefit, do we really, when we talk about tangible and intangible, can you give me some example, just a quick example of an intangible versus a tangible so that maybe we can set the stage?
That's a good one.
What do you think, Hari, from an intangible benefit, what would be considered an intangible benefit to you?
One of the most common use cases in the digital transformation world, right, is predictive maintenance, right?
Mhm.
With predictive maintenance, one of the number one things you do is you prevent unplanned downtime. That directly connects to costs, right? There is loss of revenue because your line is down. That is very, very clear as to what the cost is, right?
So it comes down to money. It's
It does.
something that's measurable that is captured every day, every hour, every month, and reported on. So
Now, it may
there's
not,
something there.
yeah, it may not always be money as well, but it is. I think you hit on a point though. It is something that you are measuring and you have a baseline on, and you have a clear cut way to get to that point, right? So, let's say for example, you have a predictive maintenance system in place, and as a result of that, right, uh, you may be potentially reducing the risk of, let's say, your employees going to have to go do maintenance on a regular basis, or maybe even have to repair things, right?
Oh, so in a sense, you're almost putting preventative maintenance, I guess, from a general point of view. It has tangible and intangible
Correct.
benefits. You know, obviously tangible meaning that you can measure by how much maintenance hours you run throughout the day, the year. It's something that's measurable, right? What's coming up, whether it's planned, unplanned maintenance, right?
Yep.
And how much risk of your personnel and maintenance personnel is getting out into an area that may be unsafe or putting more risk involved. So that's in a sense an intangible that can't be really measured, but it could be somewhat a benefit as well
It
to
is.
the overall organization.
Yeah, and there can be metrics around it, right? Obviously, there's a number of safety metrics, but is that clearly connected to dollars and cents? It may not be.
And I think that's where we come in with tangible benefits on where we see a lot of organizations really gravitate to where the tangible benefit is going to be when they start a lot of these digital transformation engagements or initiatives because they want to see real benefit trickle out. And like we just mentioned, a lot of these tangible benefits can kind of bring along some intangibles that may not be easily measured.
But it also helps
But
you from your folks going after flashy things and blinking lights that doesn't really bring you any business benefits, right? So it's important to keep us all grounded. And
well, in a good economy, people love to play with all the toys out there. But when it comes down to it,
yeah,
at the
and
end of the day, the brass tacks, the tangible benefit is really what wins the game.
yeah,
That's what really takes the dollars.
there is all kinds of cool technology out there, and it is definitely one approach to go take that technology and say what problems I can solve, right? But really, what we always talk about is how you look at the business issues and then say, what problem am I going to solve? How do I prioritize this? What is my benefit, business benefit? What is the tangible benefit? That's what executives are going to zero in on. Of course, these other things are going to matter and are going to be key, right? In a lot of times, I mean, safety is number one priority, even though there is not a not just a lot of times, every single time, safety is the number one priority. But at the same time, you have to look at the dollars and cents, in terms of what value the technology is bringing. Or
To provide, yeah.
yeah,
You mentioned a good point there on tangible around safety because safety can be really measured in a lot of different ways from a tangible point of view when you look at, incidences or near misses and how that affects insurance premiums year over year
there's
or,
definitely value
you
there.
know,
Yeah,
you know, the environmental safety, whether you get fined on emissions, whether you have good ratings, and whether you have OSHA or other compliance issues that may cost you money. So those are measurable, and those
absolutely.
can be measured throughout the year. Transformational projects around that can really influence the culture of safety within organizations. But the other intangible side of working on safety, especially what we see a growing trend, the environmental safety, the green, the sustainability way of a lot of young minds and a lot of the generations that are coming into this workforce, they value that as a high attribute for organizations to come work for. So in a sense, you're providing that's an intangible value that it's attracting best talent and top talent to an organization that may be focused on some of these things that is not very easily measurable,
Yeah.
but it's absolutely affecting the overall
Interesting you
organization.
mentioned that. But if you think about environmental benefits, I mean, there is a scorecard for you as an organization, and that's in the public sphere. Now, you may not directly tie that to a particular activity or a business use case. The reality is this is going to matter for us, for the world, right? And there
Yeah.
is definitely a scorecard someone is tallying.
You almost have a view of safety and marketing and positioning your culture and company to the world, right?
Yeah.
The new way, there's a lot of shifting for companies to have that sustainability, to have that allure of doing well to the environment. Whether people are on either side of the aisle and where we think the environment is, the reality is that it's attracting talent,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So and we have to be cognizant of that and really do our best to really help the overall environment in itself. So that's where the tangible and intangible can kind of really get swayed, but you can really feel the effects of it.
Yeah.
Tangible starts the rest, but obviously a lot flows with it that may or may not be noticeable. And maybe you want to identify these projects, right?
Yeah.
Which of those that have a strong tangible benefit, measurable return or KPI around it, but also follow through a unique intangible that is kind of not measured but really affects the overall
And it could
organization.
be the other way as well, right? It could be
Yeah.
led by an intangible benefit, but has strong value from a tangible perspective. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it does come down to somewhat of a balance. You can't look at one without the other. That's the reality. But I think we wanted to talk about a few things that are very tangible,
Yeah.
that people are looking at today, organizations are looking at today, and one of the top ones in our list is energy efficiency, right? And cost of
That's big.
energy, easy to measure.
Yeah, I mean, how can we do the same with less, right? I
Absolutely,
mean,
and with all kinds of tools that are available today, right, from software to hardware, you have the ability to track the efficiency of equipment, track the energy usage, set baselines, and monitor in real time. All kinds of solutions out there. So that's fairly easy one. But what are some others?
yeah, I think there's obviously you know, the amount of maintenance hours you put on, the amount of downtime that's associated with inefficient systems that cause you to shut down production or not use your assets at a higher utilization. These are areas where they're measurable. But one that's really that is kind of somewhat you know looked at as I would say more of a quality challenge is how are you making the quality products? We talk about the industrial IoT automation with a lot of we just talked about sensors and how that can give us more insight on how the production and assets are behaving that really ultimately affect the output or the quality of the the product, how does that, overall give us tangible benefit, right? I mean, we're making better quality product, right? It leads down the chain, right? We're able to satisfy our customers, maybe even exceed their expectations, and maybe even reduce scrap waste
Yeah.
and faulty product that is going to create inefficiencies in our production.
Right.
So there's a lot of work being done there that's really being measured because up to 5-10 years from now, I mean, everyone was using a lot of Six Sigma uh, operations and programs to kind of help lean out their manufacturing and production, but but it really didn't address how they can do that in a real time basis to monitor that quality throughout the process. It was always an offline exercise that happened every 6 year, you name it. Everyone was certified as a black belt and green belts, and you name it. And they did one project that solved one little piece, but it was not looking at the overall picture. So that's a very big one that I see a lot of tangible, a lot of work in that area.
And you pointed out something there. Now it is much easier to get the feedback from the customer in sometimes in real time, right? You can sense the emotions of customers, that are using your products, and there are tools out there that would allow you to capture some of that either through social media, apps, all kinds of things. So um, that brings us to another area, which is customer satisfaction, right?
Mm.
Is it is it something that we would categorize as a tangible benefit?
I
Can we measure it, and is that measurable in terms of dollars and cents?
I think I think this is one where we really grapple with. I think a lot of people grapple with. I think it's important enough for us to understand what is the minimum metric that we can put around this, right? I guess the way you can look at customer satisfaction, are they continuing to buy from you, right? At the same level or more. Maybe that's an easy metric, right? That maybe has a certain indication that you may be doing something right, right? But is that enough to measure satisfaction, right? We look at, you know, not just the customer satisfaction, but even in today's world, the new way of doing business with touchless buying and touchless technologies because people are afraid and the satisfaction of them going to a business that is not going to take it's going to be old school and be causing them some safety concerns around this whole COVID environment rolls right into this and it starts to meld into how you do business with a customer and how they're satisfied and wanting to come back and buy from you, right? That gives you one example, right? But but how is there ways to measure the satisfaction other than dollars and cents, right? Is there a way that we can get, a lot of ways that some organizations look at this is through a NPS, a net promoter score, where they send surveys out and they ask for that feedback from a
Would you
customer to
recommend
have.
us to others, right? Which is a pretty strong statement.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. It's a strong statement, but you know
But
that
that's core to
process
the
seems
business.
very manual.
Yeah.
It's a very manual process. It's mundane, but is there a better way to do this?
So
I mean,
that
this
reminds
is where
me
we're
of
thinking about.
app stores and reviews for products in the app store. It's
Yeah.
you go to download an app, you look at whether that's a 4 star or 2 star and a 1.5, right? And you make
Yeah.
an immediate decision right then and there in one view. It's like, hey, this may not be even worth downloading, right?
Yeah.
So that's dollars and cents right there.
That's right. I mean, it's engagement of podcasting. It's engagement. We're getting the feedback right away, right?
Yeah.
Even from us, we get feedback right away by popular demand. We see what people are wanting to hear. We start talking about these different topics. It's a very similar approach. One thing that you mentioned on is you were mentioning on how people get that feedback, right? Do you ever put 5 stars on anything? Let me ask you that.
I'm a tough reviewer, so I know I do
I
give.
I give 4 stars if I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, or if it meets my needs. But five, I mean, to me, you gotta surprise and wow me to even put a 4.5 star, right? So
But I am quick to give, two if it's bad. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good feedback, right? That feeds the loop to make the product or the service a little bit
Yeah, and
better.
of course you want to give that feedback to them, right? And you're not going to just walk away putting 2 stars and not say anything. Like you want to try and improve that. Take another second and provide that additional feedback. And we would love that feedback from our listeners right now. Like, tell us what you hear, what you like, what you don't, and what you want to listen to, right?
Absolutely. It's the 2-star reviewers that ghost you, but they keep buying.
Yeah.
That always throws me off. I just can't understand that. It's like,
Hey, they
hey,
want you to be better.
but how? Hey, just
Hey,
get
I
better.
like the direction of where you're going. Make it better.
Tell me how I can make it better.
Yeah.
Just make it better. I'm buying it. I'm keeping buying. Just make it
Make
better.
it better. Maybe I'll add some comments in there for you and, make it better.
Yeah. So yeah, so that comes to play, and it's a tangible benefit by the continuous purchases or a business with that current customer or client. So that is measurable, but how can we get that more of an in-depth feel of it? Through reviews and ratings. I mean, there's a lot of development around that space that
Mm-hmm.
can really get us an in-depth feel.
Mobility
I think
tools.
one
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, but another area is even with along with the I'm bringing it up again, this COVID crisis, around supply chain and logistics. This has been a key pillar of digital transformation for the last 10 years, even
Yeah.
before this. What we see now is a big, acceleration in how do we diversify the risk to satisfy our customers. So you can see a lot of these tangible benefits start to interlink into the customer experience and satisfaction, right?
Right.
Are we able to meet the demand with the challenges that are facing us on the front end, right? So from upstream all the way downstream, we need to be able to manage these challenges as quickly as possible. So that's we see a lot of retooling, rethinking, re-strategizing. How do we, make it much more efficient? Do we hold more inventory? Do we stay in a just-in-time environment? Do we have multiple manufacturing facilities outside of, our key customer demographics? Do we localize the manufacturing? Do we spread out different segments all over the world? This is all this today is being reevaluated. And how are they evaluating it?
Mm-hmm.
With data, right?
Right.
And the data might be dispersed, but what if all that data was connected? They would be able to see in much more of a real time and in a visible way to see where those linkages are
Yeah.
and where they need to shore up certain areas and how they can make decisions quicker, more agile. So I mean, we're seeing a lot of movement there, which is pretty exciting. And I think for the next few years, especially into the next decade, we're going to see a lot of developments and movement around that, and you're going to see a lot of tangible benefit in that space as well, I believe.
Absolutely.
So
There's a lot of technology advancements that allow for that transformation too, right?
yeah, yeah, it's out there. So now we're just accelerating the uses of these technologies. So
Yeah.
it's a very unique segment. I mean, as we start to transition from tangible to the intangible segment, which we can get into later in our future podcast, that's where the grayness or the decision to invest in some of these technologies they start to break down a little bit because it's not very easily clear of the benefit itself. And I think we can definitely go into some of that um, on our future podcast. But overall, from a tangible benefit point of view, tangible is the short term, right? You're seeing results fast.
Yeah.
The intangible may be long term that you may not see, but over time, right? To focus on over time benefit with very little tangible
Yeah.
it's not a very easy how do you say it you pitch to your business, right? You're going to spend so much money for a small amount of benefit, but over the long period of time you're going to see that intangible benefit versus
Yeah.
a big impact with tangible benefit and little over time intangible.
Sometimes
So
there's
that's
also complexity around how do you prove it, right? Um, if you did prevent, let's say, a downtime event, how do you know it's because of the things you've done as part of the transformational efforts? Or would that have happened anyway because you had the right people in place, right?
yeah.
So there's definitely certain areas of the business that is difficult to really connect to the effort that you're undertaking. And I don't know how much time we talk about uh, people efficiency and the optimization of labor, because
Yeah,
that
yeah, I
it's a
think
very expensive resource within the organization.
yeah, I think that's going to be one area too that's going to be heavily looked at. I think what was his name? We had a presidential candidate that dropped out recently. His name was was it Andrew Wang,
Yep,
I believe?
Andrew.
That he has a lot of discussions around automated tasks and how, you know, a lot of this in the future, a lot of these jobs and tasks will start to be automated, and will start to lean out the workforce. There's a lot of efforts involved in that space that really pose a lot of questions, right? There is a lot of tangible benefit to it, but to what extent? And we're seeing a lot of areas in that around, especially areas where it becomes, safety and risk start to play a role in the human factor.
Hmm.
That's kind of the areas where we start to see the bleeding edge of where that makes sense.
Yeah.
But eventually, you're going to see that trickle, and we have to be cognizant of that, and to be able to handle these changes or be able to adapt into this new world or environment is part of the transformation. And I think we're learning that today. But you see a lot of that more in the safety and risk if you're going to go in and you see robots that are automated cleaning different
Yeah.
assets and facilities that are maybe high levels of H2S and volatiles that normally a human would walk in there with a mask or some ventilator that you can avoid some of these potential danger
Absolutely.
issues with certain people or certain automated robotics. So it's a big area of interest, and it's something to look at. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what do you think about how people are going to be changing, right? Because we talked about culture and data and how things are going to be shifting, and it kind of ties right into this.
Yeah, it's a controversial topic if you ask me, because in general, that's a discussion most people don't lead with, because that puts people at unease. Is my job under threat? Right? Am I being displaced? Um, is my job going to be automated? Or so, but fundamentally though, it starts with, how do you optimize your existing labor, right? Existing
Mhm.
workforce. How do you get them to do things faster, in less time, safely, right? But that's the fundamental goal. But in the process of doing that, like you said, it's going to result in many of those unintended consequences, of whether that's reduction in force or reduction in labor, that or maybe redeploying them to different types of jobs. But Andrew was talking about, right? How do you reposition them, retrain them to do different types of roles and jobs that are going to reappear in the industry.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. Maybe we should get Andrew on. We should bring him on to kind of expound upon that issue because it's a real essential core issue that will be with us for quite some time. So maybe we'll reach out to Andrew, see if we can get him onto a segment and enlighten us a little bit of his ideas and ways.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this brief overview of tangible benefit around digital transformation. Stay tuned. You can find us at the digitaltwinpodcast.com. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter as well. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.